Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Sports Daily here. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Jack Chambers producing for you. All kinds of fun coming up on a Thursday edition of the show. We will get you our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, coming up in just a little bit in this hour. Top of the next hour, our K-State insider, Tim Fitzgerald. Need the latest on some of these injuries and get a little insight in how things have gone there in Manhattan following that Missouri loss and ahead of Big 12 play. We'll do all that here. Guests are joining us on the IHOP hotline, which is brought to you by IHOP, where guests can enjoy 4 new sweet and savory biscuit options. You can always chime in on that IHOP hotline and keep the number handy, 869-1240, because we have some more giveaways today. Paw Patrol, the new movie tickets, which starts next week. We'll have those. We'll give away some hockey tickets, some HTO. Glad to be able to do that for you. Looking forward to it. Tommy, it's a Thursday. Things get real. We get Thursday night football. Here we go. I love it. It's like the week really starts on Thursday, the football week anyway.
It does, and we're getting locked in today. Of course, Thursdays are always jam-packed with Chelsea and Tim Fitzgerald, and looking forward to getting into it today. I'm really curious to know from Chelsea today, her thoughts on some of these betting lines in the NFL for this weekend, just because of what we've seen with the injuries throughout the first couple of weeks and how that might impact lines.
And, we'll look at those lines closely with her, especially tonight for Thursday Night Football. The NFL is back. Primetime games available free from Westwood One, which is live on the Odyssey app this week. You can listen to Thursday Night Football right here on KFH. Just download the Odyssey app, search for KFH at kickoff. Always handy. I was at the fair last Thursday, Tommy, and so I was driving back for Eagles-Vikings, and guess what I did? Jump on, catch that Thursday Night Football live stream on our Odyssey app, and then flipped over to KFH as I got into town and got reception, and there, boom, I didn't miss anything. I love it. And the Thursday Night Football, the Westwood One guys, like it's Harlan, it's Ian Eagle, like it's some of the best people on those calls. So our buddy Ross Tucker, who joined the program, is on some of those. I don't think he's on this week. I don't know who's on the call this week. We can find that out. But glad to be here with you. We'll get into Thursday Night Football in just a little bit. But Tommy, a lot of big news coming from the Chiefs yesterday. Most importantly and urgently, I think that Jason Kelce stuff might have been a joke. They're reporting out today now, if people listen to the full audio, that Jason Kelce was joking about being sure that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are dating. Look, I didn't take it that way, and I listened to all of it. I think he was serious. I think this is a thing, Tommy. We're all having fun with it. I don't know how much fun Travis Kelce's having with it, but we are, and we'll have it at his expense. But, I think they're probably hanging out. Again, hanging out. I know what that means, but, there you go.
You and I did not talk before the show about the order of which we were going to be talking about things today. And I certainly didn't think that that's what you were going to lead with when you were talking about the Chiefs and the Bears. We've got injury concerns. We've got drama with the Bears. Like there's a lot going on. I did not think you were going to start there, but I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, I'm pulling for this couple to work out just as much as anybody is, because I love all the storylines surrounding it. I love the thought of Taylor showing up at Chiefs games. I love the thought of the power
fact that she's from Philadelphia, and maybe this is all like a work by she and Jason to get. Look,
I love all of
this. Is all tongue in cheek. I really, I care. It's not like most of these things where I don't care, but I'm doing this intentionally. I do it. I've done it for TV a few times now too. Anytime there's Traveler Swelsey news, I lead with, big, huge day in Chiefs news. Then I lead with it. And it's just whatever. I don't know. I'm having a blast with it. I hope everybody else is. But now Jason Kelce, what he said yesterday on Philadelphia radio, that he's 100% sure it's true. And then he was like, maybe not. I don't really know his left. Yes, he does. He knows. Come on now. And I think he's just messing with everybody. and having fun with it, just like the rest of us are. And, what we know about Travis Kelce, he's probably having some fun with it too. But they're going to need him to, they're going to need him to focus on football, which is never a concern with him. He practiced yesterday, by the way, without any sort of brace on the knee. So that's certainly good news. But boy, the injury list is long, Tommy. Richie James is dealing with an MCL that, his probably seems of the injuries we'll go over here the most serious and potentially long lasting, I would guess. I would say he's the player most in danger of missing this week, which makes returning punts interesting. Kelce looked fine. He practiced. Isaiah Pacheco surprise hamstring injury, although I will say I'm not overly concerned with that one. He was out there yesterday but didn't practice, right? So like he's in uniform and everything, didn't practice. It's not like a tear. I think he's probably fine. We'll see. The next 2 days injury reports will be pretty important for some of these. Nick Bolton and Willie Gay are both nursing injuries. That doesn't surprise us. They both got banged up in that game. And Kadarius Toney, another little injury here, this time to his toe. And we all know how toe injuries go in the NFL. So we'll keep an eye on that. I haven't heard like turf toe or anything, but that could be a problem. So it's a bad list of injuries. It's a list of meaningful players, but all things considered, when you look around the league, the Chiefs have done pretty well in the injury category this week, Tommy. And, we're getting into that time of year now with a couple weeks behind us. Thursday, Friday practices matter. Friday, especially, we just got to see if these guys practice, they'll probably be fine to play. But if they don't practice late in the week, most of the time they get held out.
Yeah, the first indication that I had about Kadarius Toney was on Tuesday when Dan Israel mentioned that he was battling a little bit of an injury, and that was news to me. I hadn't heard about that. And then, of course, in the press conferences yesterday, indicated that there were some injury concerns with Kadarius Toney, that injured toe. I think it's just going to be something that we get used to. We probably already are used to it, where Kadarius Toney is going to be dealing with some kind of injury week in and week out, throughout the entire season. That's kind of just the way that it works with Kadarius Toney. And you got to wonder if he's going to be able to play through it, how effective he might be. In regards to Isaiah Pacheco with that injured hamstring, that one I think is a little bit more concerning just because we know of the way that he runs the football. There's really no different shifting into different gears. Like he runs 100% of the time, all the time. And so I don't know if that means that we're going to see a limited capacity from Isaiah Pacheco on Sunday's game. Like you mentioned, I think that the practices today and tomorrow are going to tell us a lot about what his availability may look like. Richie James is the concern, though, and knowing that might be more of a long-term injury, dealing with that knee with the MCL. I wonder, and I know that he had a little bit of struggles with punt returns on Sunday's game in Jacksonville, losing that one in the sun and muffing the punt. I wonder what it's going to look like for, the foreseeable future returning punts. I don't think Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney are the guys to be put back there. So I don't know if that's Justin Watson. I don't know who the guy is to put back there in the absence of Richie James. And I think that's going to be a big question mark moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's the big reason Richie James is here. Kadarius Toney, I would only want back there if like we needed a big play. Like if you're the Chiefs and you're sitting there and you're like, all right, we need a big play. That's where I'd put Kadarius Toney back there. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to risk him getting hurt, honestly. And that's an unfortunate thing, but it's reality. I don't know who it would be either. It becomes like, who's going to catch this ball? Don't care about the return. Just need to catch it and not let it get behind you. I wonder if, Marquez Valdez-Scantling has ever done anything like that. Watson might be okay. Justin Ross is an option, I suppose.
Yeah.
Jerick McKinnon might be an option.
That's the thing, right? Is that there are conceivably a handful of options, but I'm not sure if you like any one of them, right? Like I'm not sure.
Well, and I don't know if those guys
confident
have done
about any one of them.
It's like, have you ever done it? Number one, and can you catch the ball? Period.
Yeah,
like don't even return it. I don't want you to return it. Just catch it. Fair catch it. If there's nobody within 30 yards of you, fair catch it. Like we got to get through this part of our game here. And they probably aren't that timid, but we'll see how that goes with that. But those are the injuries. The good news is it's the Bears, and none of those injuries should impact the Chiefs smashing the Bears. let's dig into this game a little bit. I'm probably leaning toward a big cover by the Chiefs. I won't actually bet that. We'll see what I pick on Friday tomorrow, because big spreads in the NFL are dangerous, man. But it should be an overwhelming matchup. Here's one thing I'll say that's giving me some pause. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. Justin Fields, he trying to say he was taken out of context. He wasn't really taken out of context. It's fine. I don't think it's a big controversy or anything. But he was talking about playing robotic, which he absolutely is, and he was sort of asked why, and he said coaching. And I don't think he intended that to be as insulting as it might sound. And I don't even think it's that insulting. It's true. Like, they're not designing the offense right now in a way that lets him sort of run free. The Bears did the exact same thing a year ago. They waited. They sat there on him the first couple of weeks. He looked awful. It's like, okay, he's not a big-time passer. And then they just sort of let him go. And then all of a sudden he's on the move. Guys are running wide open. He can obviously bust off big plays. I think and suspect that this will be the week that happens. I think we'll see Justin Fields run it a ton. And I haven't seen player props yet. They might be out here this morning. We'll check before we get on with Chelsea. The Justin Fields running prop, Tommy, if it's under 70 yards, like usually it's in the 60s, will be one of my favorite bets of the week, because I think this is the week where he runs wild. And historically, that has given, the Chiefs some fits over the years. It gives everybody fits. They have good linebacker play, but watch those 2 linebacker injuries, because that's where Fields might be able to hurt them.
Unless something drastically changes, I think I'm staying away from this spread entirely. I'll pick it tomorrow, like we do every single week, but I don't think I'm going to bet this spread whatsoever, because it really, really scares me. The Chiefs, from a talent perspective, are significantly better than the Bears are. We just know that. However, there's been such significant drama in the Bears organization over the last several days or so. I don't know if you saw their defensive coordinator, Alan Williams, resigned yesterday, kind of out of the blue. He'd been away from the team for a while. They don't have a defensive coordinator right now. Of course, the Justin Fields drama with him allegedly blaming coaching for his struggles,
I don't think that's
all
drama.
of that. I think the entire organization is in a little bit of turmoil right now.
I do too.
And so what ends up happening sometimes in that is that you've got a team, in the Bears, that they could all kind of rally together and go out and play the best game of their lives, or they could play terrible. I mean, you have no idea when you're dealing with all these different storylines kind of all at once. And then you've got the big talent disparity between the two teams. Man, a lot of weird things can happen. And I tend to agree with you that I think that this will be the week that the Bears let Justin Fields go. He was public with his, I guess his complaints about the way that he's been playing so far and the way that the coaching has called plays for him and all of that. So I would imagine that Matt Eberflus is going to let him kind of run wild. And it's surprising to me they didn't let him do that really in the first 2 weeks, because they know what he can do and they know where his skill set is. So I think that this will be the week that they do that, because what do the Bears have to lose? They're 0-2. They're a desperate team. They're going through tough times. That to me signifies potentially some really weird outcomes. And that spread is so big. I think I may stay away from it entirely. I don't know if I like right now. I don't know if I like the Chiefs to cover. I don't even know if I like the Bears to cover. I don't know, because of how weird this game could possibly play out.
Yeah, I don't. BetQL, I think our partners over at BetQL, I believe, had it as one of their 5 stars, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I will say, let me find the over under, and we'll have Chelsea on in 2 more segments here, so we'll get some insight on this. Over 47.5, Tommy. I think this is the week Fields runs wild. I may attack that over. As good as the Chiefs defense has looked, the Bears defense has not. So that's one side of it. But man, I just feel like Fields is going to make some big plays with his legs. That may be how I attack the game. But we'll talk about that. We'll have Chelsea on in a couple segments here. Let's take our first break, though. We'll come back and we'll preview a little Thursday night football here on the program as we get started with the week. Let's do one of our giveaways, Jad. Let's do the Paw Patrol tickets. Tickets to opening night of the new animated Paw Patrol movie. It's called The Mighty Movie. Friday, September 29th. That's next Friday, 7 o'clock, Boulevard Theater in Town West. Your kids will love you forever. and you can win some tickets right now. Chad will get us a winner on the IHOP hotline. Second caller during the break. We'll be back. More Sports Daily right after this. Congratulations, Jared, for winning tickets to the opening night of Paw Patrol. Jared called in on the IHOP hotline and gets the win. Thanks for listening, everybody, here on KFH, on our Odyssey app at kfhradio.com if you're streaming. And if you're video streaming, we welcome you into Facebook, to YouTube, and to Twitch, where we always have a video stream available for you. Glad to be here with you. It's Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor. It is Sports Daily. We'll have Chelsea Messenger, our betting insider, up a little bit later in this hour. Tommy, let's look ahead a little bit to Thursday Night Football. Start of the week. You've got the Giants, who had a pretty wild and crazy comeback against the Niners. Against Arizona. And then you've got San Francisco, who just absolutely looked like world beaters tonight. Do you think at all that the Giants figured anything out? We're not going to have Saquon Barkley, so their offense seems even more limited. Everything sort of runs through him. The Niners may or may not have, Brandon Ayuk, who's looked fantastic this year, but it's, it's a game that feels like San Francisco ought to roll with, but the Giants are a playoff team a year ago. I wasn't really buying the Giants before the season. I'm certainly not now, and I'm definitely buying the Niners, but it is Thursday Night Football. It is the short week, all those weird things. The Giants are the ones that have to travel. This feels like a pretty big spot for San Francisco to smash here.
I mean, look, the Giants had a disastrous start to their season. I mean, getting shut out 40-0 in week 1 in primetime against the Cowboys, a terrible first half last week against Arizona where they were shut out. And then they had an incredible comeback. I mean, had it not been for that comeback, the season would be completely done, I think, for the Giants. But They were resilient. They came back, and even in spite of the Saquon Barkley injury in the second half of the game last week against Arizona, Daniel Jones looked fairly solid in that comeback, and of course you've got that high caliber talent in Saquon Barkley to kind of lead you to victory. But Danny Dimes, man, like he took off and he ran and he was able to get into the end zone a couple of different times, and they found a way to win that game against Arizona. But the Cardinals are completely different than the 49ers are. And so it's a completely different kind of team that you're playing tonight with that vaunted defense and Nick Bosa and all of that. And then, of course, all the talent they've got on the offensive side of the ball, even if Brandon Ayuk is hobbled and limited in the game tonight, I think that just the overall talent that the Niners have should overwhelm the Giants. And especially when you don't have Saquon, it's going to be a tough spot, I think, for the Giants to overcome that.
Yeah, I do too. But it's Thursday night, and, they have Waller there. They could make some plays. Daniel Jones could run around a little bit. It really comes down to, can the Giants defense stifle in any way San Francisco? That's kind of the thing. Like if the Giants are going to do something, it's going to have to be like low scoring, I think, and kind of ugly. But San Francisco's offense has looked too good. I mean, Brock Purdy missed a couple of touchdown throws in that last game. They have looked as impressive as any team in football. And if you're looking for like the team that, through 2 weeks, if you're power ranking in the NFL, it's pretty hard to not put San Francisco at the top, right? I mean, Dallas probably has a case, but Dallas's schedule's been a little bit. I guess we remember Dallas beat the Giants 40-0. So there's your bar. San Francisco, go do that, I guess, I suppose. And it does not, obviously not that simple. Where are you with Daniel Jones? Are you of a belief that he's got a long future still ahead here in the NFL, or are you sort of out on Daniel Jones? He's as right in the middle of that and right as on that line, I think, as any quarterback in football.
Yeah, I'll kind of answer that question in the terms of fantasy football. He was one of my favorite options for a quarterback coming into this season. I didn't get to draft him, I don't think, in any one of my leagues, but I really wanted to. I was high on him going into this season because I feel like with Brian Daboll there with the Giants, I thought that sort of unlocked more of Daniel Jones's potential as a long-term franchise quarterback in the NFL. Now, the first couple weeks of the season, we haven't seen that, especially in week number 1, but I was impressed by what Daniel Jones was able to do in the second half against Arizona. Do I think that he is in that top tier of quarterbacks? No. I don't think he's anywhere close to that at this point, but I think that he is a serviceable quarterback. And I think the longer that the relationship goes on with him and Brian Daboll, I think that he can continue to improve. And I think that he can be a good quarterback in the NFL. I'm not sure that he'll ever be a great quarterback. I'm not totally out on him, but I'm certainly not crowning him as this outstanding player or anything. I think he can be okay.
Yeah, it's like, and you get to this point in the NFL, I think in reality from the outside, and it's not this simple on the inside, is Daniel Jones good enough to take you to a Super Bowl? I mean, I think that's the question, and I would have to say no, right? Like
He can
I
get
would
you to the
have to say
playoffs.
no.
I mean, he can get you to the playoffs. He did that a year ago, but they got to go further than that, right? And
Yeah,
that's the big question mark. And I would agree with that. I don't know if he is a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. But that being said, I think one of the things that he brings to the Giants, and the more that they can rely on him to do this, I think the more success they're going to have. Is let him run a little bit, because I think
I
that
agree. Totally
I think
agree.
he's a sneaky runner, and I think that when you look at him, at least when I look at him, I don't think, oh man, this guy could take off and hurt you with his legs. And then he does, and he's able to. And, if you can kind of switch it up a little bit, I mean, that can be kind of his changeup, right? In his game. And so if they can lean on that a little bit more and keep the defenses guessing on whether or not he's going to stay in the pocket or if he's going to get out and run, I think that's where he can have more success.
Totally. And I don't even, how is that even a secret anymore at this point? Like,
I don't think
he
it's a
can run like
secret.
crazy.
I don't think it's
No,
a secret. I just think when you look at him, you're like, all right, that's not really a guy that's going to hurt you with his legs. And then he does.
right. But, and I think a lot of people think that, but man, he's been doing that for years, right? Like that's definitely a part of his game, needs to be. So that is, I think, something to look at too with tonight's game is, and we'll talk here in just a second with Chelsea Messenger about it, but like in a game where you could see the Giants playing from behind, no Saquon Barkley, they're probably going to have to throw it a lot, all those kinds of things. What about Daniel Jones running? His over-under rushing yards is 37.5. His attempts are 7.5. Through 2 games, he's attempted it 22 times for 102 yards. So he's been over both of those in the first 2 games. And this feels like a game they need it to happen even more. So, it's interesting. All right, let's go to the phone lines real quick. Let's get to that IHOP hotline. Nick on the line. Are you calling from Chicago, Nick? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm from Chicago. I live here, but I go back quite a bit. I visit Chicago, and you're talking about the Chicago Bears. Okay, they've been dysfunctional for years. Okay, let's get that straight. This kid Fields, okay, he came from a great program at Ohio State. He didn't get stupid overnight. Okay, they're not using this kid to his capabilities. They let him do his stuff last year on his own, and he was pretty good. Now they're micromanaging the poor guy too much. They need an offensive line. They always look for a halfback. Wide receivers are a dime a dozen. Beef up the offensive line, and you're going to be fine with this guy. And then you got
really. See, I think here's what I think has happened, Nick. They let him run wild last year, and it works. This year, they in their brains are like, okay, we've got to help him be a better passer because he's not very good passer.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think he's gonna be. So if he's not gonna be, let him be him, right? Let him be himself, which is to run around a ton and let things open up naturally that way. I think that's the only path for him to be successful. And they, in coaches' brains, they would like for Justin Fields to be able to run their offense and do all these things. I just don't think that's going to happen. There's nothing we've seen from Fields through his career so far that says, oh, he's going to be this, dynamic pocket passing, whatever. No, you just got to let him run wild.
Well, yeah, but you take a look at Mahomes, okay? Mahomes is very active in the backfield also. He runs around, he makes things happen.
He is. Justin Fields isn't anywhere close to the kind of thrower of the football as Patrick Mahomes.
Now again, the big thing is now, okay, are we going to draft another quarterback? That has got to stop. We got to take the time to develop a guy. The Bears haven't had a good quarterback since McMahon. and that was 1985.
Well, they took the time with Jay Cutler, though. I mean, Nick, they gave Jay Cutler a long time.
Yeah, the coaching was a little bit more stable at that time.
Okay.
This one here, you got the defensive guy. He bails. God knows what he did. So
that's a big deal. I mean, and I think that's something, Nick, that I know it's gotten some press over the last 24 hours. I'm not sure that that's something that has been talked about quite enough. And I mean, he's been away from the team, for the last several days, and then just abruptly resigned yesterday.
Right.
I think that you've got, and I know that you're a Bears fan. I mean, and you mentioned how dysfunctional that entire organization has been. How in the world, when they've got to go to Arrowhead this weekend, how in the world do they come together as a team to try to play a game? Or are they just like walking into basically a bloodbath waiting for them in Kansas City this weekend?
Oh, they're gonna get mauled. Are you kidding me? It's just dysfunctional. Listen, they couldn't get the Soldier Field deal right because they didn't want to put in enough money. They could have had a stadium down there at 85,000 with a dome on it. They could have had a Super Bowl come in or whatever, because Chicago is a go-to attraction. But they were too cheap to put more money in. And on top of that, the only thing that they're paying towards the stadium is the interest only. They're not paying any principal on it. They got a sweetheart deal on that place.
Yeah, it is an interesting situation up there with the stadium. I've got some friends up there and they try to keep me in the loop on it. Nick, we appreciate the call. We'll see if Chicago can keep it close. I do suspect they're going to Fields will look very different Sunday than he's looked through the first 2 weeks. We'll see more of last year's Fields, I betcha, on Sunday against the Chiefs. Appreciate Nick joining us there on the IHOP hotline. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, joins the program again this week. I kind of need her help this week. There's not a lot jumping out at me. So at least in the games, there's some player props and stuff I like. We'll run it all by Chelsea, see what she's got on her mind. That's next on Sports Daily.
Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Tip podcast for more of Chelsea Messenger analysis. Just search BetMGM wherever you find your podcasts.
And always look forward to our segments on Thursdays with Chelsea Messenger on the program. Glad to be here. Welcome back into Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers producing. Chelsea, welcome in. It is the start of the football week. Happy week 3, I guess, here.
Yeah, and I have the Chiefs in Survivor, so they better not let me down because I need them to win against the lowly Bears. But have we seen a single headline come out of Chicago that's been a good one this week? I feel like the answer is no.
No, we have not. But I will say, Chelsea, here's my take on it. And we can start with the Chiefs and then come back to Thursday Night Football. I do think this is the week that the Bears let Fields basically go, and he's going to run a ton. I think his rushing props are going to be good, and I do think that might be something that just sort of kind of gives the Chiefs a little bit of fits, and that number's big. That number's so big in the NFL. Are we comfortable with 13.5, 12.5, wherever it's been?
I just don't think it's playable. Like, there are other games on the board. Like, I don't want to be sweating a backdoor cover by the Bears. And to your point about the rushing props, yeah, that's what we call the beat writer special. If you see something that a player says to a beat writer and you can use it to your advantage, I think it's worth a play. But it's already kind of built into the number. His rushing prop, 59.5, pretty high. I think his rushing attempts are the better play. Over 9.5, juice to the over at minus 120. I think he runs the ball at least 10 times. If he's going to do what he likes to do, he's going to be running the football. So I think you're spot on there. When it comes to the Bears. The only sabotage factor I can see is, remember that game last year against the Colts and Jeff Saturday, who for one great week of football was dubbed Jeff Sunday because they beat the Chiefs, the Colts did. That's the only sabotage factor, because just the wonkiness of the NFL. This is the game that nobody expects the Bears to have a chance. But still, like I said, I'm on the Chiefs in my survivor pool, so I will be on the Chiefs at least to win the game outright.
Yeah, that's a bad memory that I tried to get out of my head a long time ago with Jeff Saturday. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Chelsea. Looking at the percentage of the bets placed on this game this weekend, 95% of the bets placed on the money line going to Kansas City. This seems to me like a game where, all the money goes to Kansas City, and then just for some crazy reason, Vegas just cleans up. For whatever reason, I had this terrible thought in my mind. But one area that I'm looking at potentially betting on this game is the over under. And I'm looking at the over on this. It's at 47.5 right now. And, if Justin Fields does go crazy, that's going to play into that. But then also the Bears defensive coordinator resigned yesterday. The Chiefs have struggled through the first 2 weeks of the season, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're ready to kind of unleash on the Bears defense offensively for Kansas City. So any take on what you're looking at as far as the total is concerned?
I think you make a strong case there. Like, of course, the headline coming out of Chicago is they do not have a defensive coordinator right now, and their defense has been really bad. And maybe this is a good buy low spot on the Chiefs offense, because so far, like, how many people do you think were on the over in that Jags and Chiefs game? Two great quarterbacks, and what was the final score? 17-9. So this is probably one of the lower totals you will get for the Chiefs, I think. So I think you're buying a number here. What is it, 46.5? It's a pretty low number.
Yeah, 47.5 is what I see, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty low number for the Chiefs offense. So I'd be with you there on the over. It's not my favorite play, because I think you kind of have to bank on the Bears offense finding something out. Not sure if that's the case. I think the Justin Fields rushing prop or the rushing attempt is probably the only way to go there, or anytime touchdowns. If you think the Chiefs pile up the points, pick a player. You can go square and go Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. That's usually a good one. But those are the ways to play it in my eyes.
All right, let's go backwards then, Chelsea, here to Thursday night. Giants-Niners seems like, based on what we've seen this year, this is a Niners smash spot. But that rushing prop again for Daniel Jones, both his attempts and yards are under what he's done this season. And it feels like without Saquon Barkley, they're going to have that from him tonight.
One would think, but it's also a pretty high number, I believe. Isn't it close to 40 for Daniel Jones? And maybe the sabotage factor is that if anybody can kind of keep him contained, maybe it's the Niners. But I do believe quarterback rushing props are actually better when you're going against a good defense, because they're going to have your receivers covered and you're not going to have anywhere to throw it. So I think the rushing attempts will be there for Daniel Jones, but really kind of a disgusting game to bet on. Like, who wants to lay 10.5 in prime time? Probably not the case, even though historically home favorites on Thursday night of 10.5 and higher, 13-4 against the spread since 2006. So maybe it's a solid play. I don't want to be sweating that. Some other good options if you want to play props. I think Christian McCaffrey might be a good look in this one. His rushing prop set for 78.5. I'll hit the over here just because this is based on game script. If you think the Niners are winning, they're going to be running the ball, chewing up the clock. And also Christian McCaffrey has hit this in both games, including a blowout game, first game of the season against the Steelers. Niners won that 30-7. He hit it in that number. Plus, the Giants just gave up 106 yards rushing to James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. And then the final play I'm looking at, Giants team total under 16.5. Do you really think the Giants offense is going to figure it out against the Niners defense without Saquon Barkley, without Andrew Thomas on the offensive line? I think not. So I'll hit the under on the Giants team total as well.
I feel like, Chelsea, with the Giants that, they narrowly avoided disaster a week ago. I mean, their season would have been over had they, completely collapsed against the Cardinals. They had that great second half comeback. Obviously, lost Saquon Barkley, at least for this upcoming game and maybe even longer. Are you out on the Giants long term? I know they were a playoff team a year ago. Do you think there's any value now? I mean, knowing that they had that second half comeback and maybe saved their season, is there any kind of value on them in the futures market?
I don't think so. Like, look at the division that they're in. Like, they're not winning the NFC East. You've got the Cowboys, you've got the Eagles. And also, I think a lot of us kind of saw this coming because look at all the one-score games that the Giants won last season. The first of the year, they were on this tear. They were winning all these games. Everybody thought Brian Dable was really the answer. And I still think he's a good head coach. It's just we knew they were due for some regression. And we saw it in the postseason. They got smoked in the postseason. And now we're starting to see kind of the pendulum swing the other way to where, okay, maybe this is the closer look at what this team actually is as far as the talent involved. So, no, I'm not a believer in the Giants. Maybe they look better than what we've seen the first two games of the season, but this is a similar matchup to that first game against the Cowboys. So it's not going to get easier in this matchup against one of the best defenses in the entire NFL.
All right, what else is on your mind in the NFL before we look at college football a little bit, Chelsea? What are some of your favorite plays this week on the Sunday slate?
Well, this one looks too easy, and that's why I think maybe that's the sabotage factor. But the Patriots have won 14 straight games against the New York Jets. The Jets do not have Aaron Rodgers in this game. They have Zach Wilson, who has been flat out terrible against the Patriots in his career. The first game, he went 9 of 22 for 77 yards. And then the other game, he actually put up some yardage, but threw 3 interceptions. In fact, after that game, I believe that's the game that he got benched for a while. So Bill Belichick knows how to make good quarterbacks look worse. What do you think he's going to do to a quarterback that's not even good to start with? The first game of the year, we saw Jalen Hurts go for under 200 yards passing for the Eagles against the Patriots. Then we saw Tua, who put up monster numbers in the first game of the year, faced the Patriots, only threw 1 touchdown, and also threw an interception. So I think this is going to be an ugly game for the Jets. I'll take the Patriots, laying the 2.5.
Chelsea, the game that everybody is looking at on Saturday on the college football slate, Colorado on the road, their Pac-12 opener against Oregon. The Buffaloes are 21-point dogs. And on top of that, the total right now that I'm looking at, 70.5. It's crazy. What are you looking at with this game?
God, can I forgive Colorado for not covering 22.5 against Colorado State? I don't know, because I went out on a limb for Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, I should say. So I'm still hurting a little bit from that. But this is a different caliber of competition for Colorado. Once they're starting conference play, they've got a bunch of really tough games coming up. So I think for me, you single out Oregon here and take their team total. I know it's really high, but the defensive side of the ball has kind of been an issue for Colorado. Like, I still think their offense can put up some points. Shooter Sanders, obviously electric, but Travis Hunter probably out for this one, I'm assuming, since he's been in the hospital. Big part of that defense. So I think that I will take a team total for Oregon here. I am not messing with the spread because if you pick against Colorado, you know, you've got Deion Sanders running his mouth about you. I've got receipts. But I don't want to lay a big number with Oregon either.
All right, Chelsea, before we let you go, can't miss favorite bets of the weekend. What do you got?
Oh, we got a lot. In the college ranks, I will take NC State over Virginia, laying the 9.5. Virginia has looked terrible, lost to JMU. It's just a down season for Virginia. And plus, NC State, I think this is a bounce back spot for my Wolfpack on the road here. Finally get to play a team that I think they can beat pretty easily. Then in the NFL, we've got a couple games that have caught my eye. Let's start. Let's see. I think the craziest game to pick here is the Chargers and the Vikings. Can the Chargers finally close out a game? And can the Vikings finally close out a game? I'll take the Chargers, land the 1 on the road against the Vikings. And then let's see what else we got here. The Chiefs look pretty good in -13. We've already talked about that game. And then the biggest line movement of the entire week, Raiders-Steelers. The Raiders opened as 1-point dogs. This line has swung to 2.5, where the Raiders now home favorites in this one. And I think I like this one quite a bit. I'll take the Raiders here, fading the Steelers, who needed 2 defensive touchdowns to secure a win over the Browns. I think the defense scored more points than the offense in that game. I think this one's going to be pretty ugly for this Steelers offense that really has not found its footing just yet. I'll take the Raiders at home in a long trip for the Steelers. Let's go Raiders, -2.5.
All right, Chelsea, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got them written down here. We'll make a couple of plays with you and talk to you again next week.
Thanks for having me.
There goes Chelsea Messenger, the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. All right, hour number 1 in the books. When we come back, we're going to welcome in our K-State insider, Tim Fitzgerald. There is a lot to dig into from Manhattan. We'll do it all with Fitz next on Sports Daily.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
He's got all the insight on what you want to know and maybe some of what you don't want to know. Here's K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. You'll hear the K-State Wildcats take on UCF Saturday night right here on KFH. Fitz, welcome in. How are you today? A Thursday, a loss, the first loss of the season. Everything good up there, Manhattan?
Things are good. I'm trying to see who's going to be playing on Saturday. They had some key injuries at Mizzou, but we'll find out maybe around kickoff time. So it's going to be an interesting Saturday at the Bill.
All right, Fitz, let's start with the latest on who's playing. We know Daniel Green won't. We'll get to him in just a little bit. There's a lot of injuries to deal with. Everything looks okay from a brutal injury report, except we're not 100% sure on Will Howard, but he played through the injury in that game. How real do you think the chance is that he can't go against UCF?
Fairly real. I think he from what I'm told, it's mostly just very severe bruising to the point where it's, in the joints and that kind of thing. And the fact that they have next week off, leading into the kind of the heart of the Big 12 schedule, might lead you to believe that he'll be maybe on a snap count or won't play, or if he is healthy, it'll be kind of amazing to watch how long he can go, because it seems like that's something that could really just get hit again and cause more issues. But I'm not going to be surprised one bit if Avery Johnson starts, and maybe Will Howard's available if things don't go well, but I think they might have to go with Avery Johnson, but we'll find out. And we really aren't sure, and for obvious reasons are protecting that information pretty tightly.
We know what Avery Johnson can do, Fitz. How does the offense overall, in your mind, change when Johnson potentially starts a game rather than coming in as kind of a change of pace guy?
Yeah, it really brings in the quarterback run threat. To a very high degree. This is one of the better athletes on the team that just happens to play quarterback, and he can throw the ball, but someone has told me he actually timed the third fastest time on the entire roster. And that's impressive for a quarterback. I think what they're facing against a UCF defense that likes to attack, and in light of the fact that the last two defenses have had some success attacking the K-State offensive line and really pressuring that line of scrimmage, we saw him have some effect at Missouri, where he can make one guy miss and then he's into the next level. So the question becomes, will it be effective, him running the ball? And two, will he hold up through the course of a game? Because we know he can run the ball. He's proven it at the high school level, but the hits come a lot harder at this level, as Will Howard, what happened to him explains last week.
Fitz, Daniel Green, you could tell the emotion from coach, from the players. He's been there a long time, might be the end of his K-State career, although I don't think that's a total, foregone conclusion at this point. But just give us a little insight on, like the emotional, obviously he's a great player, but the emotional toll seems pretty heavy for Daniel Green missing the rest of this season.
Yeah, on occasion, one of these injuries and how it impacts the entire story of the player athlete, such as, what happened to Skylar Thompson. We all visibly saw Chris Kleiman's reaction. It's the same thing. Here's a kid that's just fighting to have a healthy season. Came back. We thought he was gone 2 years ago, and he came back to help the team win a Big 12 championship, and did that even though he was injured all of last season, playing through those difficulties. Now to see an even worse injury in his sixth season is awful. I know Coach Kleiman is very upset about it. And it's, it seems like the person handling it the best, from what Kleiman said, is Daniel Green. This is a young man that's just really become really put together in terms of his outlook on life, and He's a great leader, and he's handling it like a champ. We'll see if he wants to, try to apply for that medical hardship in his 7th season. Someone tweeted at me, there's a tight end, I can't remember where for, is on his 9th season due to injuries. I didn't even know it was possible. So it's going to be more to the story, but it's really sad to see him go out. And compounding the problem for K-State is his backup, Jay Clifton, was injured in the opener and probably won't be available till maybe Oklahoma State at the soonest or Texas Tech. So it's kind of a thinned out spot where, like quarterback, they might have to turn. They will be turning to a true freshman in Austin Romaine at that spot and see if he can hold up. He's looked pretty darn good in his limited time on the field.
Let's talk a little bit about the mentality of this team after the game on Saturday against Missouri. I mean, just not only the way the game played out, I mean, that was a big part of it, but then also the way the game ended with the walk-off field goal and all of that. I mean, just a kind of a wild sequence of events and the way that the game ended. As the team heads back to Manhattan after that game, and then in preparation for UCF this weekend, in your mind, what is the mindset of this team and how do they respond after not only losing against Missouri, but in the way that they did?
Yeah. Last year they were absolutely stunned by Tulane. We knew Tulane was good, but we had no idea how good Willie Fritz's team would turn out to be last season, winning the American, beating USC in the Cotton Bowl, and maybe beating K-State made that all possible and really got them cooking. But K-State's credit, they went to Oklahoma and won. And Chris Kleiman's teams have a history of bouncing back from these defeats. And so we'll see if this group can answer. Every group of kids is a little bit different. As I mentioned up top, this loss is a little bit different because there's, been a team leader that has been lost for the season, and I think it hit the locker room pretty hard. So they're going to have to get back up and get going, And on top of that, we have mentioned Trayshawn Ward, the running back transfer from Florida State, who had his moments in the first 3 games, is also injured and doubtful for this game. So, this locker room is going to have to show tremendous leadership and get back out there with the kind of focus they showed last year by winning at Oklahoma.
Fitz, from what you've seen and studied up on UCF, so you mentioned Trayshawn Ward. If the run game is limited, feels like a game they might need to throw the ball. We think they can do that, whether it's Will Howard or Avery Johnson. What have you seen from UCF as far as defensively? Is that a good matchup for K-State if they do need to throw it around maybe a little more than normal?
It could be. The issue with UCF is what we've seen Troy and Missouri do is really pressure that line of scrimmage, try to limit the operating time and the decision-making time, and that becomes even more profound with a freshman quarterback. And I'm sure, from watching what UCF has done this season, they'll follow suit. They're an aggressive defense that flies around, very athletic. They've been recruiting out of Florida, so they got the dudes. There's no doubt about it. Maybe a little bit less disciplined. Tackling might not be quite the same level as, what they might prefer to have. So I'm not convinced they're going to have to air it out. I think the quarterback run game, as Bill Snyder always said, is the great equalizer. You're not playing 10 on 11 after the quarterback hands the ball off. You're 11 on 11. So we'll see if that's the route they want to go. I think it might actually be a concern if Will Howard comes back and isn't very mobile. It might be a difficult transition for him to, try to stand in a pocket and just throw it without being very mobile at all.
I want to dial in on UCF a little bit more here, Fitz. I heard the coach at BYU earlier this week make a comment in relation to their game against Kansas this weekend, where he said that you only get one first game in a new conference. And so that's going to be the same way with UCF and Gus Malzahn's crew in Manhattan. And this is an opportunity for UCF to make a big statement. And I think that a lot of folks would have said coming into this season that out of the 4 newcomers in the Big 12, UCF probably was the most talented out of the 4. They've got the opportunity in their very first Big 12 game ever to go into Manhattan and take down the defending champs. So clearly, there's that added motivation from UCF and really to prove themselves that they're worthy to be in this conference and all of that. So knowing that, what sort of steps does Kansas State have to take to, try to make sure that you mentioned the word disciplined, make sure that they are disciplined, make sure that they don't let that statement come true that UCF wants to make?
Yeah, I mean, they are highly motivated. And Gus Malzahn, coached Auburn when they played at Manhattan. And so he's been here. He's seen the environment. He knows what they're getting into. I really think this is a game the fans can influence, because maybe outside of going to Cincinnati, UCF just hasn't seen these kind of environments that they'll experience around the Big 12 on a regular basis in the Americans. So I'm excited to see how K-State responds to that loss. And if you're K-State, you can't try to get out of your character. You need to get back out there, line up, and get, with your pass rush, become disruptive, try to contain the quarterback, try to make this about football and not emotion. I think they lost last week because the other team was better emotionally prepared. Preparing on emotions is a double-edged sword. You can hit the right notes, absolutely hit the right notes. I think Missouri did. Or you can just totally muff it and the team doesn't respond. And, Chris Kleiman's a guy that prepares his team on X's and O's and those type of things. So we'll see if K-State responds. I just love the fact that, look, we've got 4 new teams in this conference. 2 of them, Houston and Cincinnati, don't seem overly competitive this year, as is some, existing teams in the Big 12. But you're right, BYU and UCF are the 2 main contenders to be disruptive in this conference this year. And they're both coming to the state of Kansas for their first Big 12 games. I think that's pretty cool, and it's going to be a great day of football in the state.
I think it's going to be a great day of football, too. Kleiman always said, he says, don't let Missouri beat you twice. What is the outcome this weekend, Fitz, that gets you all warm and fuzzy again about K-State football? What needs to happen in this game? Is it a big margin of victory? Is it just a victory period? Like what would it take to, resurrect, I guess, the feeling we had about K-State going into that Missouri game?
Yeah, if they can get back to the things that they've proven to be really good at and the things that carried them, through last year to the championship, which is an extremely physical and dominating offensive line. They haven't had that. They've been shuffling guys around to make up for the Christian Duffy injury. He'll be back part-time in this game, so that should help. Does it settle them into what they've done in the past? We're going to find out. They've got to be better along the offensive line. And defensively, they've been so good at safety and in the back end, and that completely collapsed at Missouri. So they're going to have to come back and address that and make sure they're much more assignment and fundamentally sound than they were at Missouri. It just completely collapsed. I haven't seen anything really like that from a Chris Kleiman team. And so that needs to be corrected. But if K-State can, look, just win, baby. That's the bottom line. But if they can get a double-digit win, a 2-score win against a really good UCF team, I think this will kind of put K-State right back on track, going to visit an Oklahoma State program that is in free fall. A lot of rumors coming out of Stillwater about what a mess it is. And then an off week before you go to, an extra Saturday off before you go to Texas Tech the next week. So this is an important stretch for K-State. If you blow a home game leading into 2 road games, you're setting yourself up for some real trouble.
Fitz, taking a look at the conference in general, how disappointed are you in the Big 12 overall, outside of the 2 teams leaving the conference after this season, Texas and OU?
Well, first of all, I'm not sold on OU yet. They haven't played anyone. They just, because they had Georgia on their schedule and they had to come off, and it's been a non-conference with no P5s. They open with Cincinnati and Iowa State. They're not even going to have a test till Game 6, and nobody talks about that strength of schedule. Texas, I think, is clearly the best team, but how good are they? I mean, we all loved the win in Alabama. That was impressive. And then Alabama turns around and struggles with South Florida. What's going on with Alabama? Was that really as great a win as we thought? Or is, Alabama just not very good this year? Look, this conference is not good this time around. And that's just kind of the way things cycle through. But as we mentioned, there's huge issues at both Oklahoma State and Iowa State. And then play this weekend at Ames in a game in which all viewers will be given bleach they can pour in their eyes. I want to watch this game in the same way you slow down for the car wreck on the highway to get a good look. There's some bad teams in this conference, guys. Both KU and K-State are set up for tremendous success this season in the conference if they get through these home challenges from good newcomers to the conference this week. And, then they start picking off some of these games that are very winnable. It's been a long time in the Big 12 since you had multiple winnable games on your conference schedule just because teams are that bad. And that's facing this conference. There's a lot of wins laying out there. I mean, between Houston and West Virginia and Cincinnati and Iowa State and Oklahoma State and maybe Baylor being in that classification. Guys, this isn't a very good football conference this year. And after beating our chests about how good the Big 12's been, we got to be realistic here. This conference kind of stinks this season.
I agree with that. I mean, now that they got their new TV deal and Prime's coming in next year, like it's okay. Now we're like, yeah, you know what? We're not having a really good year, and it's actually a pretty bad year. But that's okay. It doesn't matter anymore, long term. And maybe it is an opportunity for K-State and KU. That winnable game thing, there's something to it, and it makes me really curious. Not so much about K-State. Look, I think K-State's going to be fine. But about KU, and, we're kind of talking, could they get to middle of the pack? Now, I do think for your neighbors there in Lawrence, can they finish top 3? Can they finish, that seems like it might be on the table the way that they've played this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we were wondering, could they be top 7 in the upper half? And now I think they really could be top 5 or higher. We'll see how the season plays out. Again, I come back to this. I want to see what Oklahoma's like when they start playing better competition. Because we saw it last year. It came when K-State showed up, but it's going to be a little bit later this season with, the way the schedule fell for Oklahoma. They've got one of the easiest schedules in Power 5 football this year. They better win 9 games. If they can't win 9 games on this schedule, it's a mess. So, I think this is a huge opportunity, particularly for Kansas. This is a good KU football team. And I am worried 0%, about what happened last week in Nevada. They got the win, man. They got out of there. They overcame circumstances. They got into a tussle they didn't expect, and they found a way to win. And so just move on from that and try to get the win this week. And if they do, I think we're going to really see both teams with home wins, kind of go on a roll here and start playing like real contenders in this conference because last week they did not look like real contenders.
Well, that's interesting. One more quick one here, Fitz.
Yeah.
There are rumors, Mel Tucker's gone, and I think we're going to see, 1, Prime rumored for every job, but 2, that Bruce Feldman put Leipold and Kleiman as candidates here. Do you think either of those guys would be candidates for Michigan State? I don't know why Kleiman would do it. Maybe Leipold, but I don't know. That's an interesting one. It is Big Ten money, big time program. What do you think about any of those potential rumblings?
I don't think either coach wants to walk into that kind of circumstance with everything going on up there when they both have things going in their current jobs. Like Kleiman said, he signed this new contract to, be at K-State through the end of his career. And I believe him. I
do too.
He's an honest man. And Lance Leipold, look, on paper, it's easy to say, oh, Michigan State's a better job. Is it? Really, is it? And with what he's doing right now at Kansas, it pays more. And if that's what motivates you, go get it. But I don't want to hear coaches complain about the NIL and the bidding process, the NIL, when they're out doing the same thing for coaching jobs.
Right.
I don't think either one of these coaches is solely motivated by money. Let's put it that way. I don't think that's the biggest factor that faces them. Feeling like they're at the right place at the right time is important to them, and they both are. And I think there will be plenty of Big 12 coaches available. They can have Mike Gundy, Matt Campbell. He'll be available, maybe. Neil Brown, Dana Holgerson, great candidates for Michigan State. Go ahead and swoop in and take one of those guys.
All right, Fitz, what do you guys have go Power Cat for us here ahead of this UCF game?
Guys, I actually worked hard yesterday and got a lot done, and it was remarkable. My dogs were shocked. The pregame podcast is up. Our Friday walkthrough podcast will drop, and it's already set and ready to go for tomorrow morning. We've got our regular podcast that went up earlier this week, daily delivery on my thoughts on everything going on with Coach Prime, and tomorrow I got some interesting thoughts on more highway construction. We're having fun covering K-State sports, and I'm glad to be home after that road loss to Missouri. It's going to be fun to watch the crowd at the Bill, but boy, it's going to be a long haul before they get to see another home game after an off week and 2 road games.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, get it in while you can. If you can't make it up, you can, of course, hear the game right here on KFH. Check out Fitz's work at gopowercat.com. You can follow him on social media at Life of Fitz. Let's do this again next week, Fitz.
Love you, boys. Great to talk to you.
There goes Tim Fitzgerald. If you missed any of that, if you're joining us late, you can always go back and listen for free on the Odyssey app. KFHradio.com has you covered there. Tom and I will be back. That IHOP hotline will open back up. We've got another giveaway coming later in the show, some hockey tickets, some HTO, so be sure to keep an opportunity open to win those. You can leave us your comments on our video streams as well, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Gary did not like the Taylor Swift talk.
Come on, Gary.
It's okay. It's a joke. It's a joke, everybody. We really aren't going to spend just tons of time on that stuff, but we are going to have fun and joke about it. So hopefully you can stick with us. All right, let's come back. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here. More Sports Daily right after this.
Go ahead. I think I want to hear this. Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back in Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Tommy won't have a ton of time tomorrow to talk Chiefs Bears. We got a little of that in off the top, a little bit with Chelsea, and then this week. I don't know if there's anything we need to see from the Chiefs out of that game. In the NFL, you get the wins and you feel pretty good about them. Do they need to win big for you? I don't really care. I know it's back home. I'm telling you, I've got this like nagging feeling in my head that Fields is going to run and it's going to frustrate, the defense and fans a little bit. Like, just stop it. And it's going to just make it a little more uneasy than it might normally in this game.
I want to see the offense unlocked a little bit. I mentioned it earlier this week that as of right now, the Chiefs are averaging 18.5 points a game through the first two. That's not enough if you want to be a playoff bound team, if you want to repeat as Super Bowl champions. So I want to see the offense come to life a little bit against a Bears defense that is clearly reeling. This is an opportunity for the Chiefs offense to get right. So for me, it's actually less about the margin of victory for Kansas City, and it's more about, can we start to see some positive, sustained rhythm type drives offensively for Kansas City where they're able to end it in a score. It was concerning to me, and I don't know if we've really talked about this much, and I don't know if it was concerning to you, but it was concerning to me that the second half of the Lions game and the first half all the way up with until a minute to go in the first half of the Jags game, the Chiefs couldn't get into the end zone. That was almost a full game of not being able to score a touchdown. That was concerning through the first two games of the season. And so they got to do better offensively than that. Of course, that wide receiver room has been much maligned early on this season. They had a reluctance to run the football last week against Jacksonville. There are clearly some things that they're working on offensively, and I want to see that start to bear fruit this weekend.
It's a good point, because I guess I just keep assuming things are going to be fine and will be good and better. And so it hasn't concerned me yet, but this is probably the week where if we see the offense, slog through it, that I would begin to become a little bit concerned. The NFL is so hard because it really is like 4 seasons long. Like what we're seeing now is not going to be good or bad, is not necessarily going to be what we see in week 12. Right. So, but this is by far the best opportunity for them to go Chiefs mode on it. That's why I kind of like the over in this game, right? Because I do think the Bears are going to be able to move it around with Fields on the ground, and the Chiefs ought to be able to flex on the Bears. That's it. I don't know what but the Pacheco injury is a little bit weird, and I guess we got to see that. I don't know. Everyone keeps asking, like, do you think you need to be more balanced? Do you think you need to run the ball? And I'm like, guys, like, that's never happened before. Like, since Kareem Hunt was in Kansas City, I don't think they have any designs or intent to run the ball. That's not what they want to do. It is what it is. You might think that's what they want to do, but I would counter that with, again, the same thing I've been saying all off season, Tommy. I don't think Isaiah Pacheco is going to hold up, especially if he's running it 20 times a game. So they're going to have to just throw the ball around. And, another week with the young receivers should mean another week of progress, right? And getting on the same page with Mahomes.
Yeah. I've been really, really reluctant to bring this up and say this, and I don't believe it's true right now, but if they struggle against the Bears offensively, I think it's getting closer to a time to talk about does the Chiefs offense miss Eric Bieniemy?
I thought about that last week because I think it's a fair question. As much as we always said, well, it's really Andy Reid and not Eric Bieniemy.
Right. And then look what that Commanders offense did in their comeback against the Broncos last week to win that game. I mean, and Bieniemy through the first couple of weeks has turned Sam Howell into a viable quarterback in the NFL, right? And so if that keeps up for Eric Bieniemy in Washington and he still doesn't get an NFL head coaching job, man, I don't know what else the guy has to prove. So you see what they've done in Washington offensively through the first couple of weeks. And then you see kind of this struggle, the personnel, especially catching the football. They've struggled. Travis Kelce's been injured. The Chiefs are kind of slogging through offensively through the first couple of weeks. I've thought about it. I haven't wanted to bring it up. I think if they struggle this weekend, it's time to have that conversation about how much they miss Bieniemy.
I do too. I think you can have it now. And it's a tip of the cap to Bieniemy, who certainly deserves that, hat tip. Like, through 2 weeks, I think it's pretty clear what his impact has been, right? Like, don't you? He was important for this offense, and that continuity was important and good for him because it's what he's battled, right? Like, what have we said all along? If he goes to Washington and does well with that offense, he's going to get a head coaching job. Like, that'll be the final thing. Now we can see it twofold a little bit as you're a team like wondering about and considering the Bears. Right? Let's say the Bears suck and they're the worst team in football again this year. Time to move on from Justin Fields? Yes. Well, Eric Bieniemy's going to be, right there for you. Caleb Williams, it's so good for Bieniemy, and I do think it matters. Now, was he designing all the plays and doing? I don't know, but it doesn't matter because when he was there, the offense reinvented itself last year and has reinvented. How many times has the offense reinvented itself with Bieniemy? At least twice when he was in Kansas City, right? Now he's gone and they're not there yet. Do they get there? We'll see. Yes, again, I think that they will. But this is I thought about this as I was watching that Jags game. I was like, man, this is awesome for Eric Bieniemy. Not rooting for the Chiefs to struggle offensively or anything like that, but all the things that he's had to battle trying to get a head coaching job. And that's the one we think is the most, difficult for him to overcome, is being an Andy Reid shadow. Well, he's out of it. And his Washington team with a unproven quarterbacks looked okay, right? And the Chiefs have struggled.
Yeah. And look, I think that becomes the potential trap for the game this weekend against the Bears. Do I think that more than likely the Chiefs are going to get right and win the game and probably win it going away? Yeah. I mean, I think I probably believe that. But the trap is, okay, so offensively, let's say they continue to slog along and they're still not getting it right the way that they need to. Also, Justin Fields, I think, feels some desperation. I think the Bears coaching staff feels some desperation and they start to let him run wild. And the Chiefs defense, while they've looked good in the first couple of weeks, you're now dealing with a quarterback that can potentially run all over the place. So if those two things happen, that's where the trap comes in. I think it's unlikely, but that's really where I would be a little bit reluctant on this game because I do think that there is a path to a little bit of a trap.
Yeah, I do too. And the reason that I think everybody is loving the Chiefs to cover this spread, I'm seeing it as a favorite bet in a lot of places. It's because of their defense. I mean, it's
doesn't
because
this
they
feel
think their
though?
Defense can.
I mean, I mentioned it to Chelsea. Doesn't it feel a little bit though like this is a game that everybody throws all their money on the Chiefs and then Vegas just cleans up?
Absolutely. The Chiefs have not historically been a good covering team.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it is. Like, and it's. I don't know what I'll do with it yet. I think that over is my play. Well, let me take that back. My play is all the Fields rushing props. Again, that's the play for me on that game. 13.5. I don't ever like 13.5. Look at what happened with the Cardinals last week. Look at what's happened with them twice now. Like, it's hard to identify what team is going to get blown out. I mean, it has to be like the circumstances have to be so perfect for that to happen. And then weird stuff happens. Are you really going to lay 13.5 for a team that was penalized the way it was last week, that continues to turn the ball over? That's the kind of stuff that keeps bad teams around.
And all of this noise surrounding the Bears organization throughout the week, it's a perfect opportunity for those players to come together, shut the noise out, and rally around each other. And again, from a talent perspective, the Chiefs are head and shoulders better than the Bears are. But, weird things happen in situations like that. As far as betting is concerned, no, I'm not going to lay 13.5 for Kansas City. And I think that as I'm actually betting this game, I've actually kind of thought about it. What I might do is actually pair it with another game and then try to tease it both down, because you can do that when you're adding multiple games, like in a parlay. I may try to do like 2 games and then tease the spread down to maybe like just under a touchdown. Like I'm a lot more comfortable betting the Chiefs -6.5 than I would be betting the Chiefs -13.5, clearly. So I might find another game that I can tease down also. I'm not going to get as good of odds, obviously, but I feel a lot more comfortable doing that than laying at such a big number for Kansas City.
Yeah, there's something there. We're both sensing it a little bit. Like there's something there. That's kind of messing with us a little bit. So we'll see. Look, it's a game the Chiefs need to win. Like first and foremost, win it, look good offensively. We'll see what happens. And I think too, like clean up the penalties and stuff. Those are also things you want to see. Can they quickly do that, right? Like how quickly can penalties and undisciplined play be erased? I think with a team like the Chiefs, pretty quickly. More from yesterday, Patrick Mahomes talked for the first time, talked about his contract. Let's take it there now, Tommy. I think that Patrick Mahomes tells us without telling us how much he wants to be team friendly and make sure the Chiefs have the room to go bring in great players and retain great players. And he just has to toe this line of and continue to set the market for the peers. I can't remember a bigger trust factor between player and organization. I mean, he talked about it, just like we know we're going to just, go back to the table in a few years and I can trust them when they tell me that and, whatever. It is so unique to have what the Chiefs have in him because he is going to just like, it's almost like Brett Veach. Like, okay, each time we do this, we got to make me the highest paid guy because I do need to move the market forward. But at the same time, like, how does this need to look in order to help us the best it can look? Knowing that I need to make, like a penny more than the guy before me.
It's unique in that situation. But then, of course, it's also unique in the fact that Mahomes is a transcendent athlete and player and the value. I mean, Clark kind of talked about how regardless, what he does, he's still going to be underpaid. So if he was just a great quarterback and not, potentially the best ever, it might be a little bit different. But I mean, he's the best ever. And so, of course, the Chiefs know the value that he brings to their organization overall. And so they're going to be more willing to work with him in that way because they literally and genuinely cannot afford to lose him. And so they're going to do what they need to do. But then also Mahomes knows that. I mean, it's kind of like that unspoken thing, right? Where like he knows the value that he's worth, but then he also recognizes the importance of working within the confines of the team. And so it's unique in a lot of different ways. I agree with you. I've not really seen a relationship quite like this before. And it's definitely one that, will continue. And there was some speculation I saw on social media from a few different people saying like, all right, well, this new deal, they can come back to the table in 2026. And does that effectively shorten the deal for Patrick Mahomes? And could he be a free agent and go up? He's not going anywhere else. He's a Chief. And they're working together to do that. Right. So I completely take that off the table because they've got such a great and mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah, it is. And he makes the most money, by the way, being a Chief and holding that. Like the Tom Brady situation is, I don't know what, 15 years away from being a reality or possibility for Patrick Mahomes, just because who knows that far into the future. But no, his value both on and off the field is absolutely the highest as a Chief. Yeah. He's a minority owner of 2 sports franchises in Kansas City. Like he's he's going to be there for a while. All right, 869-1240. Zach Greinke, you heard some of that from Ted Woodward. We'll talk about Greinke as we continue here on Sports Daily. Was that his last start, Tommy? There's like 10 games left of the season, and it's very stressful for me personally with the American League race right now. We'll come back. We'll talk a little Greinke next on Sports Daily. All right, Tommy. Little baseball. Jake Albracht, Tommy Castor here with you on Sports Daily. Zach Greinke got the start last night. Could be his last home start. I think there's some chatter that maybe it's his last start in general. I don't know how anybody tries to predict the future with Zach Greinke. He's just so, quite frankly, unpredictable in what it is that he is going to do. But it's been an unreal career for Greinke. And for 3 years now, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think he's the best pitcher that the Royals have ever developed. I hope he gets in. Baseball should remember him. He's such a unique character. And I think his career deserves to be celebrated that way.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the most unique characters, I think, in baseball. And I love the way that his story has developed over time, coming up through Kansas City, playing for the Royals, winning a Cy Young, but really keeping the fans at an arm's length and, really kind of, not the most personable guy, awkward guy, all of that. Then he leaves, he goes elsewhere. He is part of championship teams, is a great pitcher for a number of different organizations, and then kind of comes home like the prodigal son, returning back to Kansas City where it all started. And just the way the fans have embraced him, and they embraced him before, but really even now as one of the elder statesmen of the game. I love Zach Greinke. I love what he's done throughout the course of his career. And even like the last few years, when he was with the Astros and then coming back to the Royals, reinventing himself, knew that he was losing velocity, but really changing up his pitches to be more of a creative type pitcher. I love him. I hope that he's not done. I hope that he comes back. I don't want to see him leave and his final year be with a team this bad in Kansas City. So I'd love to see him back for another year, but time will tell if he actually stays or not.
Well, it does. That's the sort of the interesting part of the equation, right? Like, he's not going to be able to come back and help every team across baseball. Probably not a contender, right? Like, the only chance for him to contend is, I think, with the Royals. But he's also, like, the things that he said, and I haven't paid as close attention to, like, his post-game remarks this year, admittedly. But I've always had the indication, like, he just enjoys this. He's enjoyed being back in Kansas City. He enjoys being around the young pitchers. Again, he's wired in a unique way that I think it's silly to ever try to assume what Zach Greinke's thinking. Maybe he doesn't care at all that they've been in this rebuild. Maybe he just enjoys himself. Maybe he has no designs on retiring. It's a really cool story to follow. If he is done, put him in Cooperstown. I think he absolutely deserves it. And when we're not in the middle of the football season, we can go through the credentials and I can tell you why I think he deserves it in the modern era. And if he comes back, heck yeah, why not? It's awesome. It's not like the Royals are going to find 5 guys better than him to put in the rotation.
Yeah, and I don't know how many other pitchers right now have had the kind of longevity with the amount of success that Zach Greinke has had over the course of his career. I mean, I'm thinking of like Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. As far as longevity is concerned, it's probably those 3. Garrett Cole came in a few years later. I'm trying to think of anybody else, but really, I think it's what Greinke and Verlander, maybe Clayton Kershaw. Like, those are probably the guys right now that have the kind of longevity and just the long sustained success in their career. And, Greinke doesn't get, I don't feel like, the kind of props that those other guys have gotten throughout the course of their careers. And Greinke's a Cy Young winner and all of that. And he has made teams significantly better when he's been on their roster.
Well, look, listen, we've got to change the framework and rewire our brains on what is a Hall of Fame pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not the same as it used to be. I would say I agree with those names on the pitching: Verlander, Kershaw, Scherzer, and then Greinke. I think Greinke's right there. And those other guys would be ahead, right? Like, they'd be ahead of him in that, in that world. But Tommy, like, I think that's it for anybody in consideration right now. And that's hard. I don't know if Garrett Cole is going to get there. He could. but it's just like there's no way to. I don't know what the benchmarks are now, right? Like I don't know. I mean, you can take WAR, which will be helpful, right? And that's going to be something that helps, when we can't look at wins and we can't look at strikeouts and we can't look at all the same things because guys just don't pitch the same way anymore. Greinke's got to be a part of that group because you have to be celebrating baseball players. I've said this forever about the Hall of Fame. You don't want to be so exclusive that you're not celebrating the greatest players of a generation. And yeah, there's 4 guys of a generation that need to be in the Hall of Fame. Like, who are the best pitchers of this generation? So I don't really care what their numbers are as much because it's impossible to compare generationally. So don't do that. Just compare versus peers, right? Yeah. I'm of the belief that there always are Hall of Famers playing because the Hall of Fame is designed to celebrate the sport, and you can't just pretend like years don't happen.
And, it used to be much more commonplace for pitchers to pitch for close to 20 years, if not longer, and win 200, 250, 300 games and strike out a ton of batters. Like that doesn't quite happen like it used to. And those 4 guys that we've identified, they're more and more of a rare breed. Like, the longevity that they've had with the success they've had over the course of their careers. I think that's where you can compare them a little bit to generations before because it just doesn't happen like it used to. And so absolutely celebrate the pitchers that have the longevity in their careers.
It is. Look, guys weren't throwing 100 miles an hour very often either. So you've got arm injuries now in play. All of these things make it impossible to compare. It just does. Zach Greinke needs to be in the Hall of Fame as one of the great pitchers of the last 20 years, along with, behind Verlander, Scherzer, and Kershaw, but still there. And for the Royals, put a statue up. Like he deserves to be as celebrated as any Royal ever. I mean, you could, it's going to go in my mind, Tommy. And again, I'm not like a lifelong Royals fan, but George Brett, Zach Greinke, and Salvador Perez, probably like that. That's the 3 for me. I think that the team would want to be a part of like the celebration of all-time greats in the organization. They'd certainly be on the Mount Rushmore for the organization. And there are some others that would be in there too, but that Greinke's right there. He just is. And it's a shame he didn't have opportunities with the Royals to, win World Series and do all that stuff like Verlander and, Kershaw and Scherzer have, but that's okay. Put him in. 869-1240 on the way here to our final break. Let's give away some hockey tickets and some iced tea. The Wichita Thunder home opener coming up here very quickly, Tommy. It is October 20th. We'll give away a pair of tickets there and a pair of free iced tea cards available from HTO Wichita West, East, or now in Derby. Jad will get us a winner. We'll wrap up after this.
O'Reilly. Increase your vehicle's performance and gas mileage with Lucas Fuel Treatment at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply add it to your tank at your next fill-up to eliminate carbon and varnish deposits. Get 2 bottles of Lucas Fuel Treatment for $10, plus 2 times O-Rewards points. See your O'Reilly Auto Parts store for details or shop online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
There's never been a better time for football fans to join the huddle for all the hard-hitting action with BetMGM. Download the BetMGM app and use bonus code Wichita when you place a $10 pregame moneyline wager on any pro football game. You'll receive $200 in bonus bets instantly, regardless of your wager's outcome. Sign up now and discover BetMGM's daily promotions, player props, live betting options, and more. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and sign up today to get started. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly and offer resources to help you make appropriate choices. BetMGM.com for T's and C's. 21 plus to wager. Kansas only. New customer offer if applicable. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel.
Eco-Light work shoes are made with eco-friendly materials to provide a smaller carbon footprint. Extremely lightweight and flexible, they offer out-of-the-box comfort and superior protection for work in light-duty industries. Red Wing has long believed that how a shoe is made is just as important as the work it's made for. That's why we're proud of the Eco-Light family. Unmatched durability and better for the environment. Stop by today. Red Wing Shoes, 6600 West Kellogg.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
College volleyball action last evening. Wichita State opening up conference play on the road at East Carolina. Good night for the Shocks. They win it in a sweep, 3-0. The Shocks have never, ever lost to the Pirates, 10-0 all time. Shockers overall now on a 4-match winning streak. Natalie Foster came up huge for the Shocks with 12 kills and 5 service aces. She combined with Morgan Stout for 23 kills on the night. Shocker volleyball opens up conference play with a victory. We'll be talking football tonight here on KFH. Start out with K-State action. Kansas State head football coach Chris Kleiman has his weekly coaches show at 6 o'clock tonight. K-State getting ready for its conference opener Saturday night in Manhattan, hosting Central Florida. Coach Kleiman show, 6 o'clock tonight here on KFH. After that, Thursday night football, the undefeated San Francisco 49ers home opener hosting the New York Giants. 7 o'clock tonight here on KFH. FanDuel has the Niners as a 10.5-point favorite. I'm Ted the Sports Head.
Hi, Tom here. Coming up tomorrow morning on the Bob and Tom Show. He's from our staff. He's great. He's comedian Jeff Oskey with news we failed to mention.
Wildlife officials have finally removed a tire that had been stuck around an elk's neck. What you failed to mention, still no news of the kid that was swinging in his backyard.
That's tomorrow morning on the Bob and Tom Show. Bob and Tom mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Ryan Rack here from Sunday Night Football on Westwood One. Primetime action in Week 3 has T.J. Watt and the defensive-minded Steelers traveling to Las Vegas to take on Jimmy Garoppolo and the Raiders. Both teams are 1-1 in the young season, both still looking to find their stride in 2023. Mike Golick and I have the call. Steelers at the Raiders on Sunday Night Football.
6:30 Sunday night here on KFH. Get the latest on Wichita State volleyball. It's the weekly coaches show with Shocker volleyball coach Chris Lamb. 6 o'clock Monday evening, right here on 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Definite shout out to Wichita State volleyball. That's it for us. Coming up, Jim Rome at 11, Bob and Jeff from 2 to 4. You've got the Chris Kleiman show tonight, 6 o'clock right here on KFH. You've got Thursday night football, 7 o'clock, Giants and 49ers. By the way, you can catch Westwood One games on the Odyssey app, just like you can here tonight on KFH. You can also download the Odyssey app and listen to it there as well if you're not in your car around that radio. Tommy, let's get ready for a Friday tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good. Enjoy Thursday Night Football tonight.
For Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. We will see you with picks. Paul Savage joins us tomorrow.